Ken, initially the death penalty was on the table. That is off the table. The maximum sentence he could face is first-degree murder. But I want to get your reaction. The jury was able to consider lesser charges of second-degree murder or manslaughter. They gave him the stiffest guilt possible in this case. What's your reaction?
Well, that tells excuse me, that tells me that the prosecution made their case, and it was convincing enough to the jury that this person was guilty of all of the things that he was charged with, and they chose, as you just said, they chose the highest degree that they could give him. Now, the fact that the jury came back so fast lets me know that they were very attentive. They paid close attention to everything that was going on. They took copious notes. They did all their due diligence, and then they were given instructions by the judge this morning as to how to deliberate and look over evidence and all of the things that's been presented, and then make their decision from that point on. They all obviously came into, it probably came into agreement on the first vote. You know, when they would go around the table and ask, well, how do you vote, guilty or not guilty? So 4 hours for a case like this, that's pretty quick.
I mean, we heard 7 days of testimony, and I was in the courtroom watching the jurors closely. They did have their notepads out. They were taking a lot, and they asked a couple of questions today that give us a little bit of insight. And one of those questions was regarding Shanna Gardner's trust and how she would be able to be the trustee of her own trust if she was not entangled in any legal things with Jared Bridegan. Shanna Gardner is set to go on trial next month for Jared Bridegan, her ex-husband's murder. This was the first of 3 trials, 3 defendants in this. So now that he's been found guilty, how do you think that impacts her trial?
That's a good question. And so you got to look at the totality of circumstances and the totality of everybody involved. Right. It's going to be held here in Duval County. I believe that a lot of people was following this trial, so it's going to be a challenge to get an impartial jury, in my opinion. It can be done, because there's going to be some people that's not interested in watching this and keeping up with it. So you've got to have an impartial jury, not once, but 2 times again for her trial. So this verdict may, if she is guilty in any kind of way, she's presumed innocent until proven guilty. If she's guilty in any kind of way, it may convince her to try to get a deal, some type of plea deal.
Oh, interesting.
As opposed to going through a trial and being convicted. Then you can throw the dice and take your chance in a trial to see exactly where that would land. But the fact that he was convicted in the highest degree in such a short order after closing arguments says something to her and the other suspect.
Very interesting. This jury never heard from Mario Fernandez-Saldana on the stand, but they did hear from him in his interview with police. And I don't know if we have that soundbite available, but if you all can pull up the soundbite of Mario. It was 13 days after Jared Bridegan was killed, and he was called in and, yes, not taking the stand. Mario willingly went in to Jacksonville Beach Police, and he talked about Jared Bridegan. He was not a suspect at that time. I want you to listen to what he said to police less than 2 weeks after Jared Bridegan was killed.
If she could have more timeshare on her end, if it was like 60-40 or whatever, if we could bend it just enough, it'd be great, because the kids would be better off.
Right.
You know, and if we could push them into the corner of all the interaction with the kids, we all need to be together.
Yeah.
So they could just suck it. And I don't care if they're suffering because they're uncomfortable.
So that's what he told police. And when I was listening to that, I was surprised that he would be so frank of, you heard his words about a man who had just died. I wonder what role that played in the jury's deliberations.
Well, the investigation in and of itself played a large role. The rollout from the police to the prosecution dissects everything, goes over it, follow up with everything that they've investigated and found. And the fact that he initiated the contact, if you will, with the police and said, hey, I don't have anything to do with it. I want to talk to you about it. He basically kind of implicated himself. You know, he wasn't a suspect at the time, but for him to go in and talk and speak the words that he said threw a red flag to the investigators. Like, okay, this guy's coming in on his own.
Right.
He's talking to us, and he's saying certain things. But see, a lot of times they forget Miranda. the Miranda says that anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Right.
And that's what they did.
Yeah.
They went right back to it, and it was used against him.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, the state's case was largely circumstantial. I mean, the defense pointed out there's no DNA linking him to the crime. There is no eyewitness linking him to the crime.
No weapon.
But one of the things that I kept going back to were the 3 checks found in the car, the truck of the man the state and the defense say was the shooter, Henry Tenen, who's also charged in this case. Those 3 check stubs totaling $10,000 that Mario signed, and Henry Tenen was the former tenant of Mario Fernandez, who he evicted. Why was he paying him $10,000? And the defense tried to say, no, he was doing legitimate work. He was doing yard work. He was doing roofing work.
Well, I'll change my profession if I can make $10,000 in a day's time or in a month's time, or whatever. But on a serious note, that was key. That was critical.
Yeah.
You're paying that kind of money, and it doesn't make any rhyme or reason. It made no sense, that amount, the amount of money that he was giving to Tenen during that particular time. So it just kept pointing in his direction, even though it's circumstantial.
Right.
Still don't have a weapon.
Right.
Still don't have a witness.
Right.
You don't have any DNA evidence. They convicted this guy on circumstantial evidence. And I've always said, it's not likely a lot of times, but it's not impossible not to convict someone on circumstantial evidence. So all this circumstantial evidence came to fruition today.
Sure did.
It resonated with the jurors. Yeah.